It's March 9th, 2024. I'm inside of the United States of America, Federal Reserve note, the ONE and the In God We Trust. There's Jackson. There's the White House. Um, and that's the currency that is circulated still in this moment in the year 2024. Um, I'm in state of New York, which in North American terms, in the United States of America, is the East Coast. Um, I sent my son, it's Saturday, so normally school is held Monday through Friday. He went to school today on Saturday. This is something new. Um, that they put in for mathematics and English. English as a language arts. I want that on his record, um, between the id, the ego, and the superego at God, GODONETWO for HCGH, since I was born 1978. Um, and throughout the universe and the galaxy, there are living legends and life forms that have these symbolic labels that are important, even though they seem totally unimportant on in the whatever. But at certain levels, they're important. Um, because again, when you have to choose random sets responsibly in an irrational set of whatever, like when you get to the billions level of something, how do you even choose your random set? So um and of course calcaneus calculus and biological clocks being whatever they are, um imprecise human timing in the physicalness outside of the virtual world and the quantum realm of physics. So I'm watching into it says the label says 2009 for Transformers. Something about a fallen again, like I try not. I get that somewhere in the world there's this war machine. I heard today on Bill Maher there was a guy who wrote a book about a future war possibility with China. And then they were talking about the Middle East and they were talking about Russia. And I'm just like, I live in the United States, the 48 with the 250, depending on if we're talking about water. And I have to worry about the children in the now, in the NOW that I have at the moment as an ONE. Um, so, and balancing out whatever is going on that's in this gigantic machine that I have no control, personally have no control over. But what happens to me matters, on the stage in the theater of North America. And then that is one of, again, I don't know what the other six are doing while my theater is performing this way. So in my theater, it's important what happens to me and my children and what's going on around us. Um, so I'm this morning they put on, as I sit in front of the television, first thing that comes up is this Transformers 2009, and I'm looking at the Camaro. I know it is a very unusual color scheme. I know in my world, my real point of view and POV, that the GOD sent someone, although I didn't know what it meant at the time. I still really am trying to figure this out. And I know who was driving that vehicle, um, in the sense of behind the wheel. What at the GOD, what subscript that was, I don't know. But I see here in the movie they put it with this graveyard, and I'm like, is that supposed to tell me like that her arrival was at the graveyard shift? Like, I mean, again, I'm trying to like conceptualize what are they trying to speak from, like Hollywood theater, in where I was when this actually pieces of these symbolic gestures actually happen in New York. Um, then I'm listening to Optimus Prime. This concept of Decepticons and this concept of Autobots, and like who would have this capability at Autocrats, perhaps. But if there's theoretically, like I'm only supposed to have one autocrat. I don't know how the autocrats work or the Autobots work, with all this Decepticon going on. But then I hear that there's something the Middle East started, like they credit the Middle East for something called a forever war. I don't even know what that was or is. Um, it didn't exist in my childhood. Um, we were a peaceful union that had gone through some wars, but we were settled, and it was just whatever and the whatever. Um, but I don't know, in the quietness of my being here, if someone else was setting up stage for a future war. And it's like this encroaching upon my, like, if others have these autocrats that build this war theater and this forever war, and my area, if and only if, has some form of defense and has its own autocrat who's constantly trying to push back against keeping the whatever in however they run this theater. What happens to me and the children matter. Our reports in matter, um, for our national security, um, and for our future. So I'm watching how they speak of this. I mean, we're supposed to be interior in the 48, a peaceful planet. I don't like the war machine is somewhere else. Um, so I'm not really sure where this whatever and the whatever is, but there's some security apparatus that functions at all times. So, so I am just watching this one movie, like what they're portraying, and I can't even really follow it with clean lines of symmetry. It's the type of thing, there's so much visual stimulus and so much runs through my mind in time and space, um, with other things that are going on. And then in the timing, that because this is from 2009, then the timing, um, today on the CBS, they put up this piece about atomic clocks and particle physics and how it's in practice, and they're using them now that they've come this far. But in Europe, they're not showing it in America at the moment. Um, I don't know if that's, again, the id, the ego, and the super ego trying to have like a conversation of we're already there. And like, again, um, and so there's that. And then there's this piece in the New York City area about the New York City school children, um, and this mishmash of population, of children in the garden at the moment, and wanting chicken dumplings and chicken fingers put back on the menu. I don't know what that was about. Again, I don't have contact with any of these humans. Like, I mean, my son goes in and out of the building, but it was the same as me in the harbor. Um, it was whatever the teacher was teaching, and then it was in and out of the building, but there was no building, like, so they were not building social networks, they were not building team, they were not building community. The entire time I was in Cold Spring Harbor, there was no sense of, like, in second grade, maybe third grade, at the fashion show, whoever arrived who said that he was going to find me for marriage, um, when the time came, he knew something was going on with Shauna, but I didn't know what that was about. I was like, we don't talk. And then the following year in fourth grade, Shauna was like a real, like, bully, and Jackie Lyberg was there as sitting as witness. In Miss Harrison's class. I had no idea what that was about. I don't know, her and Molly Finkel. I didn't know why they would. I mean, I got the letter from the GOD, and I was the one put in the authority position, and they were just really nasty and argumentative. And again, I was dismissive. I was just not having it. It's just the answer was no. I didn't see their argument was not working. Um, so there was that. Um, but it was a lot of alone time, and there was really no community, and there was no society, like, entrance in. Um, so I'm watching, and I know how important the atomic clock is, as well as the biological clock. Um, and knowing that there's parts of physics that, like, it's cute that the humans have discovered it, like, oh my god, look at how, like, small little increment steps, like a toddler. And then there's, like, the people that deal with, like, real scientific stuff at a whole nother level, um the frightening level of scientists, who I don't even have words for. And I don't know, just like that distance from, like, the cute part of, like, cute mathematics and, like, the cute physics, and then the distance to, like, the really scary persons, and the respect that they command. Um there's this bridge that, like, I know of their existence. I don't know what they call themselves. I don't know where, in what capacity they function in. Um, but I'm just trying to gain through the television some depth perception. Because really it's it's so hard to traverse. But I know at, like, personal security, it's important. So this is what it looks like. So at some point, after the divorce, or while, actually, right after Alexander was born, and I had when I had to move back to New York, which I didn't want to from Virginia. I was very happy in Virginia. Um, Someone with this car, no names, showed up in my son's and my life. Right now they show it with this graveyard again. Um so this is just a piece of the scenery. There's a couple of scenes, but again, it's so many finite conversations that only go, in my instance, one direction in one way to read it. And I just don't see the point in it at the moment.
Huh. You won't give me a day, huh? You won't give me one day in college.
I'm sorry, Sam, but the last fragment of the Allspark was stolen.
Like what? Like Decepticon stole it?
We placed it under human protection at your government's request. But I'm here for your help, Sam. Because your leaders believe we brought vengeance upon your planet. Perhaps they are right. That is why they must be reminded by another human of the trust we share.
Okay. Now,
This
I
isn't my
don't.
war.
Now, that's my perspective pretty much with this edge technology 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. What it means, are we talking Calvins? Are we talking black hole? Like, again, if it was like a NASA person who's more versed in this than myself, but I don't have level to even that in New York, in that to that level of scientist or that level of vocabulary or conversation. Um, they've withheld that from my person. They've just developed this stuff. They've thrown it out to corporations in corpses, hired all sorts of genetic variants that don't look like family personnel, through something I hear them throw out words like a DARPA, like a government contracts and third party contracts. Who were these people that I mean, like, how did these contracts get assigned by whom? What, like, I mean, was it autocrat? Are they trying to reshuffle the old autocrats and the new autocrats? Like, I don't even know answers to that at this point. Um, but if the sunlight, which right now, I mean, it's at whatever this is, they're again, a particle physicist would know better. They threw out there the word muons, leptons, and something else. That sounds like more of a CERN conversation. At least that's the only place that I've ever heard. But again, that's more towards the ego side. I did go to a very real meeting in the whatever. I got on a plane. I thought I bought a ticket. I know where I bought a ticket to. Where the plane landed, I am assuming it went to its destination. But do I really know? No. And then I went in and I met with what I refer to as the Canadians. Um, and that was for real estate. Um, and I'm just like, but again, it's still North American real estate. So, I'm not really sure what any of this is about. Um,
Not yet, but I fear it soon will be. Your world must not share the same fate as Cybertron. Whole generations lost.
I know. I want to help you. I do. But I am not some alien ambassador. You know, I'm a normal kid with normal problems. I am where I'm supposed to be. I'm sorry. I really am.
Sam, fate rarely calls upon us at a moment of our choosing.
You're Optimus Prime. You don't need me.
We do more than you know.
I just know I was born on a prime number. I know that I also duplicated that. And I know my family unit only can, like, it's myself and four, which make up the five. That's it. Other than that, so here's this top story with them talking today on the CBS about um, atomic clocks. So, and it says something about the federal government, which again, in federations, this is what it is while this is being displayed. So, the colleges, the universities, the facilities that they are developing the knowledge of this exists within my life frame and my children's life frame while we are here inside North America in the United States of America. I don't know which scientists and which theorists, I don't know who else is involved in these products and these projects. But there are like ABO sensitives, like RH sensitives that are inside. And when I say RH, it's rhesus. It's the rhesus ABO, because it either shows a positive or a negative. That's how they speak of it in the medical field. Um, and there's real serious protein, um, like the proteins just don't match on certain levels of like different, almost different species of biologicals. But I don't know what a species, like, I don't even know if that vocabulary word is the correct word.
For this hour, we grudgingly prepare tonight to set our clocks ahead for daylight saving time. Changing the clocks is a twice yearly precise ritual from coast to coast. So it might surprise you, the federal government is still trying to figure out exactly what time it is and what time it should be. Scott McFarlane explained.
Well, it's still federally, the Federal Reserve children and the descendants thereof are still here. Like, again, if we're speaking SERF to LORD in North America, who were we, who are we? Like, as seeds in the garden of, I'm on the side of ID according to where I landed when I went for the real estate, whatever, and they did the personality test. Um, and then there's this, like, I've heard them speak of the Garden of Eden, but I don't want to get off into some whatever conversation.
In the Rockies, at a 206-acre federal government campus outside of Denver, they spend a lot of time studying the time.
That's the on-time tick.
Inside the lab at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, scientist Andrew Novick and the federal government's Time and Frequency Division are perfecting their atomic clock, in which, yes, they measure the movement of atoms to best calculate exactly what time it is.
We deal in nanoseconds here. Those are billionths of seconds.
Who would care about that?
Something like your phone, GPS. GPS works by having atomic clocks on board satellites sending signals to you and I and everywhere, and that's how you get your location.
Because no matter how large or how
Okay. At one point, so like huge radiological amounts weren't like pelted on the heads of we the people. The clocks looked like this. The wristwatch looked like that. It was precision, like there in this area of New York, as I was growing up, the respectful way to speak of it was German engineering, like Bavarian engineering. They were the clock makers, like again, and when I say Germanic, it's the Swiss, it's the Nordics, it's the Northern Europeans. That was the way of speaking of the ancestors and the respect of the clockmakers. And whenever clocks were spoken of in precise mechanical timing, like they were our national treasures. Like if you were so blessed to have the money to be able to afford a good watch, like that's the watch, the guardsman, that's who we are. Um, Now in my life frame, which I had dreams of as a child, and I would wake up in body permanence here in New York, while somebody caught me while I was sleeping, in order to alert me to this upcoming event, that was very frightening, that I would awake almost like from it was a dream in the sense that I got to like what I call is like my home. Like I got to be around people that I really loved being in their care and being in their conversation. And then I would awake here in New York almost like a low class prisoner. Um and I'd have to try to bring my adults into this world that I know existed, but was very difficult for them because they didn't understand how I could possibly know the future, but like as a child and what I was frightened of, there was this, they were coming. I just remembered these beings that did not belong, were not in our house, but I had seen one in the local neighborhood already. But there were more of them that were going to come and descend in the area. And I didn't know how to, because there was like, I was trying to get to it brought a whole lot of different things that I was afraid of. And putting those into words, even as a youth, was difficult. Now I could probably do a better job of it. Um, but what it represented, and how it would affect my ability to have a nice life, and to like, there was two paths, and I was taken from the path that I was set for and happy for, and like my home path, and I was rerouted into some other path, which is where I am now.
Sharp they appear, clocks aren't perfect, and eventually they slip over time with consequences.
Yeah, imagine something like the stock market, right? You have hundreds of millions of transactions happening in a second. So you have to time tag those. Who bought it first?
There's so much slippage and imperfections in our measure of time. Every few years, the global community has to add a leap second to catch up. You just add a second to one day to keep everything aligned.
Yeah.
So again, as far as like mental acuity, like this exists in somebody's household. This is their livelihood. Like they get this conversation. I understood this as a child. I still get it now as an adult. But I did a video yesterday of what the Taurus from 1975 sounds like. And these are not the conversations that I can have with him because it's not his forte.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Government is frequently grappling with time. It was the government that created the time zones about 100 years ago to help trains and transit systems keep uniform time and prevent mishaps on the tracks. Train and bus systems nationwide, including this one in Montgomery County, Maryland, are launching new studies to better track delays and the accuracy of their time monitoring programs to ensure more precise arrivals. Here in Congress, they're even debating changing the time. A new proposal would make daylight saving time permanent and end the twice-a-year clock changing.
We like that extra hour. You got to remember, we're a rural state. Farmers love daylight savings and a lot of other.
When I was a child, this genetic, this Bavarian looking, like German, Swiss, whatever looking, whatever he is, child from Europe ish, that's what clocks, that's who knew the clocks, who knew the how to make precision clocks and ticking watches. That was who was in charge. Now on the CBS this morning, there's some child from I don't know what outside state. It's not part of the 48 that I knew of in the federation that I know of. I don't know where the visitor is from, but I don't know why CBS is portraying them as like the person in charge of clocks. Like, on whose authority was that? Shouldn't Biden technically Trump before and Biden, like, shouldn't they, as family members of the unit of the Federation, shouldn't they be the ones who are aware of this clock and have that like level of secrecy and whatever for, like, again, building the, it just seems like they're trying to build some other nation like inside, while I'm struggling and having problems, as is the tourist from 1976, although he seems to have done better than the tourist from 1975, and I don't know why.
Other things too. Kids practicing baseball.
A bill to make daylight saving time permanent.
A similar proposal nearly passed into law in 2022, so Alabama's Tommy Tuberville is trying again, though there's been opposition from those worried about the impact of especially late morning darkness.
You get a lot of calls about this.
Oh, yeah. It's the number one issue. We're going to leave it daylight savings time.
Meanwhile, back in the federal lab in the mountains, they're still testing and measuring ways to better count those nanoseconds, trying to perfect all the time in the world. For CBS Saturday Morning, Scott McFarland, Boulder, Colorado.
Now that's precise.
You know, senators on both sides of the aisle in that piece said it wrong.
Yeah.
No S.
Saving.
No S.
Saving.
It's so easy to say savings time.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime.
Because you're thinking of plurality.
Right. Anytime I'm any, but they don't have a Brian Applegate or a Tony Dibble there.
To make sure they're on par.
Our executive producer and our senior broadcast
Yeah.
producer.
I am all for getting rid of it. Let's just, and then you don't have to say it anymore.
You want to get rid of them?
Oh, yeah, so that we're just at the same
Brian
time.
and Tony gone.
That's not nice.
Yes, Jeff, that's what I want. Get rid of them.
We're making a lot of changes here. We're getting rid of daylight saving. We're throwing out the producers.
Yeah. Well, we still got a lot more time on this show, so we're gonna head on over to weather.
Oh man,
That's coming up next.
what's going on here?
All right, and then I'm gonna go over to the food in New York City, because that has to deal with diet and nutrition, which is a whole nother set of whatever and the whatever. So I'm gonna pause this for a second and go over to that. Now, what really made me smile, I have to be honest, because the word mark is in there. It says mark for review and had the number 8. And then it said College Board, and it has the SATs. So again, this is just a story at the moment. And it has the CBS New York and the SATs. So it starts with this, and then it goes into the New York City food system and how the children are speaking of it inside of New York City.
But
You didn't turn out that bad. Doug.
well, thank you, but I'm not sure I'd want to be the guinea pig the first year of the
I know the
digital
program
stuff too.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it goes.
Indeed.
All right, school leaders say kids spoke up and they listened. Some popular lunch options are returning to the menu after being discontinued last month.
This is going to sound like a weird thing to say dramatically, but the chicken dumplings are back. Budget cuts led to their brief departure, among other.
Like, if I think of that autocrat, like, there are autocrats that exist outside of my 48 states. But shouldn't, like, and I don't know who to ask this to. I really will think on it. But there should be one autocrat representative to protect the area, the institutions, the children, the corporates, the shared network here. And then there's those forever war autocrats elsewhere. And, like, again, how do you protect what's here? Because there's theoretically six potentials for elsewhere. So, again, at custodianship and taking care of the custodial responsibilities in an area, that's where I'm, like, having these shifting arguments with numbers and shapes and
foods, and it turns out the students have themselves to thank for their return.
We heard from the kids loud and clear. And they were
like, I don't know where my autocrat is at the moment when this is the chancellor. He refers to himself as a chancellor of New York City within the DOE and the education department while my son is going to school at the moment. Where is my autocrat? And is this acceptable? Is my son in any kind of trouble now or in the future? Like, how do I protect him in this day and age? Like, was this an invitation and an appointment by the North American autocrat that has to deal with the Decepticons elsewhere? If such a thing exists, if and only if there are other autocrats, because there's 7 continents. So how does my autocrat stay safe and protect the family, the larger family unit of people trying to have children and raise them in a manner where they'll have continuity and be able to whatever. Like, I don't understand how the security apparatus is working that, but when I look, I'm just amazed at my son is here right now. Why would the autocrat, ever allow in a Decepticon, for instance, calling itself a chancellor? Like, that's where, like, I wrestle with them like they're radio stations that I can turn the song on or off, because it's somebody's job and function. I just don't know how to protect myself and my kids.
We're not happy about that.
Maybe the lesson here is that when you come between kids and their chicken fingers, you're going to have some new advocates to answer to.
They've reached out to DOE. They've reached out to their council members. They said, this is what we like. This is what we will eat.
The news officially announced at Thursday's No Kid Hunt.
Interesting. I've said that since I was a toddler. I knew what who I was, and then it's like the menu changed. I don't know who changed the menu. And here we are.
Kid Hungry event honoring hunger heroes across city school districts. Like this PS32 cafeteria cook, known to her students as Anna Banana.
I'm happy because they keep asking me for it. I'm so happy I cry inside and I laugh outside.
We initially reported on the menu cuts on February 9th when we visited the Bronx School of Letters and learned about their cheese sandwiches. Thursday, we went back, expecting relief, and instead, lingering frustration and confusion.
Why was it taken in the first place? Food and children, it shouldn't be played with.
Almost immediately after the CBS News report and the CHOPPY report, we saw French fries come back. Then we start to see chicken tenders almost within a day or two. I do wonder again, was this all just a political game and stunt? I wondered where they came from. What money did they use to buy them?
We investigate every situation with food issues, and if any corrective action is needed, we implement them immediately.
Representatives from the Department of Education could not comment on how exactly the cuts were reversed, and as for why they were made in the first place, city officials told our education partners at Chalkbeat that an increase in kids eating and meals required this school year made it hard for the system to afford.
Nice job, Dougie Fresh.
Well, I'm just, the Chalkbeat led the way here. They're our education partners, and their first story, these photos of the sandwiches, the grilled cheese, and I put in quotes because as the kids we spoke to said, this is not a grilled cheese. One of the girls we talked to called it a struggle meal. So basically, it started this process of telling the story of this one school, and they've started to see a trickle back of the meal items. But now, by early next month, everybody will have their favorites back.
We usually don't see progress happen that fast or change happen that fast.
It was kind of an odd thing that they even included in the budget cuts, and now clearly they found the money somehow, and the kids will have their chicken dumplings and chicken tenders back.
Happy for those kids. They deserve it. It's still school, right? They still
you got to eat lunch.
All right, coming up, a United plane full of passengers rolls off the runway. But the air...
So that was the news this morning. I'm going to pause this for a second and then go back. There is just so much impossible theoretical to unpack with what were they trying to say in the movie of that Transformers that came out in 2009. And then they have like I speak of it if physiologically inside of the environment, like if there's say like a mini sphere of science that exists like an orb around my humanness, that then, because I have to distinguish the outer layer from the inner layer as I walk through time and space, if there's something in between that sphere, like a disruption in signaling for whatever reason, that could impact thought process and ability to receive the energy necessary in order to hold thought pattern. Like they talk of like the alpha, theta, beta, and one of the other waves for brain and neuropathy, which again, I've been academically inclined at times, but the recall of it, because then how has the airspace been changed? Are there research labs and neuroscientists that are buying laboratory time and using the time that I'm here in New York trapped as some kind of laboratory time? Like, did someone try to buy laboratory time and use us as like laboratory rats unbeknownst to our persons? I mean, theoretically it's possible, but that's where I'm having these troubles, and I'm not the only one, and it's of most concern at the moment, because I also see that I had trouble finding my security apparatus and joining into some like rite of passage. Like, why is my security apparatus being withheld from my person? Why wasn't I allowed into my U.S. security apparatus? That doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. And then to not get to the person who physically came and took a photo with me on what looked like cell phone technology back then. I don't know, it was some kind of special camera. Um, like I just don't know. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Ketters, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxies broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.